Gary McKinnon, the UFO seeker, British hacker, would go on to become one of the most infamous figures in the world of cybercrime, not because of financial gain or political disruption, but because of his obsessive quest to uncover hidden truths about UFOs and extraterrestrial life. Born in 1966 in London, McKinnon was an ordinary man with an extraordinary interest in computers. His fascination with technology began at an early age, and by the time he reached adulthood, he had developed impressive self-taught skills in computer programming and hacking. McKinnon's hacking was not motivated by malice or greed, but rather a deep-seated curiosity about what the government might be hiding from the public. Start as the internet became more accessible in the late 1990s and early 2000s, McKinnon found himself drawn to the world of online networks. He started experimenting with ways to break into systems, particularly those of large organizations. What set McKinnon apart from other hackers at the time was his desire not to profit from his intrusions, but rather to uncover hidden information that, in his mind, could change humanity's understanding of the universe. The NASA and military hacking. McKinnon's hacking spree began in earnest in 2001 when he gained unauthorized access to a number of U.S. government and military systems, including those of NASA, the U.S. Army, the Pentagon, and the U.S. Air Force. Over the course of a year, McKinnon accessed at least 97 computers belonging to these agencies. His actions disrupted critical systems, causing hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages. McKinnon, however, claimed that he wasn't motivated by malicious intent or a desire to cause harm. Instead, he asserted that his goal was to find evidence of UFOs and free energy technology that he believed were being concealed by the U.S. government. According to McKinnon, during his hacks, he discovered what he described as a secret non-terrestrial officers list, which he believed was evidence of a covert space program. He also claimed to have found pictures of UFOs and other alien-related documents. These claims fueled McKinnon's belief that the government was actively hiding the existence of extraterrestrial life. McKinnon's actions were part of a broader interest in conspiracy theories, particularly those relating to UFOs and government cover-ups. What made McKinnon's case particularly noteworthy was the way he carried out the hacks. He used simple, low-cost software tools to exploit vulnerabilities in the computer systems of the U.S. military and NASA. McKinnon would often gain access by exploiting weak passwords or unprotected systems, often leaving behind little trace of his intrusion. His hacking was more about curiosity and a desire to uncover hidden truths than a sophisticated cyberattack aimed at theft or destruction. McKinnon's actions may have been motivated by a desire for knowledge, but they had serious consequences. The damage caused by his breaches was substantial, with estimates ranging from $700,000 to $1 million. Systems were shut down, important data was lost, and the operations of NASA and the military were temporarily disrupted. These breaches also exposed vulnerabilities in the security protocols of some of the most secure institutions in the world. In 2002, McKinnon's hacking activities were finally detected, and the U.S. government began investigating his actions. A grand jury indicted McKinnon, charging him with multiple counts of computer crime, including unauthorized access to government computers. The U.S. sought his extradition to face charges in the States, but McKinnon's case became a prolonged and controversial legal battle. One of the key challenges in the case was the fact that McKinnon was living in the United Kingdom. The British legal system would have to decide whether to extradite him to the U.S. to face charges. McKinnon's defense team argued that extradition would be unjust due to his health problems. He suffered from Asperger's syndrome, a form of autism, and his lawyers contended that the stress of extradition would have a severe impact on his health. McKinnon's case became a political and legal spectacle, drawing the attention of activists, scientists, and the media. While some viewed him as a rogue hacker who had crossed the line, others saw him as a whistleblower trying to expose the truth about UFOs and government secrecy. In the end, McKinnon was never extradited. In 2012, the UK Home Secretary, Theresa May, blocked the extradition on the grounds of McKinnon's health. The decision was hailed as a victory by McKinnon's supporters, but it also raised questions about the fairness of the international extradition process and the treatment of hackers who commit cybercrimes for personal, rather than financial, gain. The legal fight to prevent McKinnon's extradition lasted for several years and was marked by both public outcry and political maneuvering. During this time, McKinnon gained the support of high-profile individuals, including British scientists and politicians. who argued that extraditing him to the US would be disproportionate to the crimes he had committed. The case also sparked a broader debate about the nature of hacking and the ethics of pursuing individuals who hack for non-malicious reasons. While McKinnon's motivations were not rooted in financial gain or malicious intent, the consequences of his actions were undeniable. His hacking disrupted the operations of major government agencies, and the information he accessed could have been valuable in the wrong hands. Still, McKinnon's supporters argued that his actions were motivated by a genuine desire for truth and transparency, rather than greed or political aims. The decision to block his extradition was a significant moment in the ongoing global discussion about cybercrime, privacy, and government transparency. It also highlighted the challenges in prosecuting hackers who operate outside the traditional boundaries of crime, motivated by personal beliefs rather than the desire for profit or power. Gary McKinnon's story is one of the most fascinating and polarizing in the history of hacking. To some, he is a symbol of a new kind of hacker, one driven not by financial motives, but by a belief in uncovering hidden truths and challenging the status quo. To others, he remains a criminal who caused significant disruption to government operations and endangered national security. His case, however, has become a touchstone for debates about hacking, digital security, and the balance between national security and individual freedom. Despite the controversies, McKinnon's story has become a part of hacking lore. His quest to find evidence of UFOs and free energy technology sparked widespread interest in government secrecy and the role of hacking in uncovering hidden truths, whether or not one believes in the existence of extraterrestrial life. McKinnon's case is a stark reminder of the power that hackers can wield in the digital age and the lengths to which they will go to uncover the information they believe the world has a right to know. Evgeny Mikhailovich Bogachev, the shadow behind Game Over Zeus, a Russian cybercriminal, is one of the most notorious hackers in the world due to his role in creating the infamous Game Over Zeus botnet. Born in the late 1980s in Russia, Bogachev's early life remains largely obscure, but by the time he came to international attention in the mid-2010s, he had already become a significant figure in the world of cybercrime. What set Bogachev apart from other hackers was his remarkable ability to orchestrate large-scale criminal operations that spanned across countries and industries, affecting millions of people worldwide. Game Over Zeus was a sophisticated piece of malware created by Bogachev and his associates. It functioned as a botnet, a network of infected computers that could be remotely controlled by hackers. The botnet was originally designed as a tool for stealing banking credentials and personal information. However, as Bogachev expanded his operation, Game Over Zeus grew into something much more insidious. It became the backbone for a wide array of cybercrimes, including identity theft, financial fraud, and the distribution of ransomware. Game Over Zeus was particularly damaging because it was so difficult to detect and stop. The malware used advanced techniques to evade antivirus software and other security measures. It would infect computers when users clicked on seemingly harmless emails or downloaded malicious attachments. Once inside, the malware would silently harvest sensitive data, such as login credentials for online banking accounts, and send it back to Bogachev's servers. The botnet's reach was staggering, infecting hundreds of thousands of computers around the globe, generating massive amounts of stolen data, and facilitating a wave of financial crimes. The scope of the Game Over Zeus botnet and the havoc it wreaked on individuals and organizations was vast. According to the FBI, Game Over Zeus was responsible for stealing over $100 million from businesses and individuals. It was one of the largest and most sophisticated botnets in history, and its impact on the global financial system was profound. One of the primary methods through which Game Over Zeus operated was by facilitating the theft of online banking credentials. This allowed Bogachev and his associates to siphon funds from victims' bank accounts, draining them of their savings without leaving a trace. In addition to stealing money, the botnet was used to deliver other types of malware, including ransomware, which would lock victims' computers and demand payment in exchange for restoring access. This added another layer of malicious intent to Bogachev's operation. In total, Game Over Zeus is believed to have infected over 1 million computers in more than 190 countries. It was active for several years, beginning around 2011, and was responsible for countless cases of financial fraud and data theft. The botnet's reach was so extensive that it compromised a wide variety of industries, including financial institutions, healthcare organizations, and government agencies. The stolen data was often used for identity theft or sold on the black market. The scale of the operation was not only shocking because of the financial losses it caused, but also because of the sheer sophistication of the malware and the way it operated. Game Over Zeus utilized advanced encryption techniques to communicate with infected computers, making it incredibly difficult for authorities to trace the stolen data back to its source. In fact, it was so successful that it became a blueprint for other cybercriminals looking to launch similar attacks. Bogachev's reign of digital terror did not go unnoticed. As the creator and operator of Game Over Zeus, he quickly became one of the most wanted hackers in the world. In 2014, the FBI officially indicted him on charges of wire fraud, computer fraud, and conspiracy. The FBI described him as the mastermind behind one of the most destructive cybercrime operations in history. They also included him on their most wanted cybercriminals list, offering a $3 million reward for any information. Leading to his capture, the FBI's efforts to apprehend Bogachev were complicated by the fact that he was based in Russia, where cybercrime laws are either weak or rarely enforced. While Russian authorities had little incentive to cooperate with the US in capturing one of their own citizens, the US government pulled out all the stops to try to bring him to justice. The FBI worked closely with other international law enforcement agencies, including the European Union Agency for Law Enforcement Cooperation Europol, and the UK's National Crime Agency, to try to track down Bogachev and dismantle the Game Over Zeus, botnet. In 2014, a coordinated international operation known as Operation Tovar was launched to disrupt the Game Over Zeus bot. The operation involved taking down servers used by the botnet and attempting to sever communication between infected computers and Bogachev's control servers. Although the operation succeeded in significantly disrupting the botnet, it was not enough to fully eradicate it or capture Bogachev. By that time, he had already disappeared, leaving behind a tangled web of digital evidence that law enforcement agencies are still working to unravel. Despite the massive international effort to capture him, Bogachev's capture remained elusive. One of the primary obstacles to his arrest was Russia's reluctance to cooperate with US authorities. As one of the world's leading cybercriminals, Bogachev was seen by many as operating with the tacit approval, or at least indifference, of the Russian government. Russia does not have an extradition treaty with the United States, which means that, legally, it would be difficult for the US to force Russia to hand over one of its citizens for prosecution. Moreover, there was growing concern that Bogachev had become part of a larger cybercrime syndicate with connections to organized crime groups in Russia. This raised the possibility that his criminal activities were being shielded by powerful figures in the Russian underworld. As a result, even as law enforcement agencies around the world continued to pursue him, Bogachev remained an elusive figure. Despite these challenges, the US government has not given up on capturing him. The FBI has continued to offer a substantial reward for information leading to his capture, and there have been periodic updates indicating that law enforcement is still actively pursuing him. Bogachev's name remains at the top of the FBI's most wanted list for cybercrime, and he is considered one of the most dangerous and elusive hackers in history. As of today, Evgeny Mikhailovich Bogachev remains a fugitive, one of the most wanted cybercriminals in the world. Despite years of investigations, international cooperation, and public appeals for information, his whereabouts are still unknown. The hunt for Bogachev is a reminder of the challenges that law enforcement faces in the digital age, where hackers can operate from the shadows, hiding behind layers of encryption, anonymous networks, and political protection. Bogachev's case is also a testament to the increasing complexity of cybercrime. What began as a simple botnet for stealing banking credentials evolved into a massive global operation with far-reaching consequences. As long as hackers like Bogachev remain at large, the fight against cybercrime continues to evolve, with law enforcement agencies adapting their methods and strategies to confront the growing threats posed by digital criminals. Albert Gonzalez, the mastermind behind the Heartland Brechefin, considered one of the most notorious hackers in the history of cybercrime, was a key figure behind one of the largest credit card theft operations ever carried out. Born in 1981 in the United States, Gonzalez's early life followed a relatively unremarkable path, but his growing fascination with computers and technology would lead him down a dark road. What began as a curiosity about hacking eventually escalated into a full-scale cyber-criminal enterprise that affected millions of individuals across the globe. Gonzalez's first foray into hacking came in his teenage years, where he was reportedly involved in minor crimes related to technology. It was during this time that he discovered the underground world of carding, the practice of stealing and using stolen credit card information. Gonzalez quickly became immersed in the world of digital theft, using his growing skill set to exploit vulnerabilities in networks and systems for financial gain. His early success in minor fraud schemes gave him the confidence to take on larger, more ambitious targets. As Gonzalez's criminal activities advanced, so did his understanding of the financial systems that underpin them. His foray into large-scale credit card theft would eventually lead him to a position of power in the cybercrime world, where he could orchestrate attacks against major retailers, financial institutions, and other corporations. Gonzalez's technical skill, coupled with his ability to organize complex criminal operations, made him a force to be reckoned with in the world of hacking. In 2007, Gonzalez began what would become one of the most significant hacking operations of the decade: the Heartland Payment Systems breach. Heartland, a major payment processing company, handled millions of credit card transactions every day, making it a prime target for any cybercriminal looking to profit from stolen financial data. Gonzalez and his associates infiltrated the company's network, using advanced methods to gain access to sensitive data. Over the course of several months, Gonzalez's team managed to install malware on Heartland's payment systems, enabling them to capture the credit card information of millions of customers. The scale of the breach was staggering. Gonzalez's hackers were able to steal the credit card numbers, expiration dates, and security codes of an estimated 130 million credit cards, making it one of the largest data breaches in history at the time. The stolen data was then sold to other cybercriminals who used it to make fraudulent transactions or sold it on the black market. Gonzalez's criminal enterprise had created a multi-million-dollar operation centered around stolen credit card data. What made the Heartland breach particularly notable was the way Gonzalez and his associates bypassed multiple layers of security. Heartland's systems were sophisticated, yet the hackers managed to exploit vulnerabilities in the company's payment network to gain undetected access. They used a variety of tools, including sniffer programs and backdoors, to monitor the flow of transactions and collect data, without being detected by security protocols. Gonzalez's actions went unnoticed for a significant period of time. Heartland's executives were unaware of the breach for several months, and it wasn't until 2008 that the company realized the magnitude of the situation. Once the breach was discovered, Heartland worked with law enforcement agencies to investigate the attack and mitigate the damage. However, the breach had already caused significant financial losses, and the company faced public backlash over its failure to protect sensitive customer data. Heartland Payment Systems was not the only victim of Gonzalez's hacking operations. Before and after the Heartland breach, Gonzalez was involved in several other high-profile attacks on major retailers, including TJX, the parent company of retail brands like TJ Maxx and Marshalls. The TJX breach, which occurred in 2005, was another significant achievement for Gonzalez and his criminal network. Using similar methods, Gonzalez and his group infiltrated TJX's networks and stole credit card information, ultimately compromising over 45 million credit card records. In addition to Heartland and TJX, Gonzalez's group also targeted other companies, including 7-Eleven and Hannaford Brothers, another retail chain. These breaches, while smaller in scale, helped establish Gonzalez as one of the most dangerous and prolific hackers in the world. The total number of stolen credit card records linked to Gonzalez's operations is estimated to be in the hundreds of millions. One of the most disturbing aspects of Gonzalez's criminal activities was his ability to orchestrate multiple breaches simultaneously. His operation was not just limited to one or two companies. It was a sprawling, multifaceted criminal enterprise that affected a wide range of industries. The stolen data was sold to other cybercriminals who would then use it to commit fraudulent transactions or resell it on the black market, creating an intricate web of criminal activity that spanned across multiple countries. Gonzalez's rise to prominence in the cybercrime world was not without consequences. As law enforcement agencies began to piece together the scope of his operation, Gonzalez became a target of investigation. In 2008, the U.S. Secret Service and other agencies launched an extensive investigation into the Heartland breach and other attacks tied to Gonzalez. In May 2008, Gonzalez was arrested in Miami, Florida after a months-long investigation. The authorities had been tracking his activities for some time, and they finally managed to catch him in the act while attempting to purchase counterfeit credit cards with the stolen information. The arrest marked the beginning of a long legal battle for Gonzalez, who faced a host of charges related to his involvement in the Heartland breach, the TJX breach, and several other major attacks. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Gonzalez initially denied any involvement in the crimes. He argued that he was not the mastermind behind the attacks, but rather a middleman who was merely helping to facilitate the theft and sale of the stolen data. However, the evidence against Gonzalez was irrefutable. Authorities had intercepted communications between him and his criminal associates, and they had traced the stolen data back to Gonzalez's operations. In 2010, Gonzalez pled guilty to multiple counts of wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison, a sentence that was viewed as a significant victory for law enforcement in the fight against cybercrime. His conviction was a reminder of the severe penalties that hackers and cybercriminals can face when their activities are uncovered. Albert Gonzalez's case has had a lasting impact on the world of cybercrime. His actions demonstrated just how vulnerable large organizations were to cyberattacks and highlighted the growing threat posed by hackers who could infiltrate highly secure systems to steal sensitive data. The Heartland and TJX breaches were watershed moments in the history of cybercrime, prompting businesses to take cybersecurity more seriously and invest in stronger defenses against hackers. Despite his conviction, Gonzalez's story is far from unique. His criminal activities have inspired a new generation of hackers, many of whom are motivated by the prospect of financial gain and the challenge of bypassing sophisticated security systems. However, Gonzalez's case also serves as a warning to others who might be tempted to follow in his footsteps. The penalties for large-scale cybercrimes are severe, and even the most skilled hackers can be caught and brought to justice. For Gonzalez, the damage caused by his actions is immeasurable. He not only stole millions of dollars, but also shattered the trust that consumers place in the companies that handle their financial data. His story is a stark reminder of the risks of operating in the digital age, where a single vulnerability can lead to catastrophic consequences. Gary McKinnon, the hacker who pushed the boundaries of national security. Gary McKinnon, a British hacker whose actions shocked the world, is notorious not just for his cyberattacks, but for the audacity and scope of his hacking activities. Born in 1966 in London, McKinnon's life would take a series of unexpected turns that ultimately led him to one of the most high-profile hacking incidents in history. McKinnon's early life was marked by a keen interest in technology and computers, which, as he grew older, translated into a fascination with the vulnerabilities in complex computer systems. By his late teens and early 20s, McKinnon began to experiment with hacking. He was a self-taught computer programmer, known for his ability to understand and manipulate complex systems. His interest in hacking was not driven by financial gain or notoriety, but rather by a desire to learn and explore systems that were otherwise inaccessible. This intellectual curiosity led him to hack into a variety of networks, including those of large corporations and governments. However, McKinnon's most infamous actions would occur in the early 2000s when he set his sights on some of the most sensitive and secure networks in the world, those belonging to the United States military and NASA. McKinnon's motivations for hacking into these government systems remain the subject of debate. Some believe he was driven by a desire to expose government secrets related to UFOs and extraterrestrial life, while others argue that his hacking was driven by a deeper frustration with what he saw as a lack of transparency and accountability within government organizations. Regardless of his motivations, McKinnon's actions would have far-reaching consequences, not just for him personally, but for the broader landscape of cybersecurity. The NASA and US military hacking spree between 2001 and 2002, Gary McKinnon executed a series of high-profile cyberattacks against US military networks, NASA, the Pentagon, and several other government agencies. His method of entry was remarkably simple. McKinnon used an array of basic hacking techniques, including password cracking, exploiting weak security, and taking advantage of known vulnerabilities in the systems he targeted. He used an internet connection from his home in the UK to gain access to these systems, which were thought to be highly secure and protected by sophisticated firewalls and encryption. McKinnon's most notorious hack was against NASA's systems. He was able to infiltrate over 97 computers at NASA, including systems used by military officials, contractors, and astronauts. McKinnon's primary goal, he claimed, was to uncover evidence of a massive government cover-up involving UFOs, alien technologies, and classified space programs. He reportedly spent hours poring through data on NASA's networks, searching for anything related to UFOs or extraterrestrial activity. According to McKinnon, he found evidence of non-terrestrial officers and exotic technology that he believed was being kept secret by the US government. Aside from his UFO-related interests, McKinnon also found that he had access to sensitive military information, including communications and documents related to US military operations. In some cases, McKinnon's intrusions caused considerable disruptions to operations, leading to the shutdown of key systems and the loss of critical data. McKinnon's hacks went undetected for months, allowing him to operate freely within these secure systems without facing immediate consequences. In total, McKinnon managed to compromise 13 US military networks, including highly sensitive systems used by the Army, Navy, and Air Force. The full extent of the damage caused by McKinnon's actions remains unclear, but it is widely believed that he accessed sensitive information that could have compromised national security. The US government quickly realized that they were dealing with a sophisticated hacker, and efforts to track McKinnon's activities began in earnest. As McKinnon's intrusions began to come to light, the US government mounted a massive international effort to capture him. McKinnon's location was quickly traced to the UK, but capturing him would prove to be far more complicated than anticipated. Given the nature of his crimes, the US government sought his extradition to face charges in an American court. However, McKinnon's case became the focal point of a long-running legal battle that raised questions about the extradition process, the severity of his crimes, and the human impact of his actions. In 2002, McKinnon was arrested in the UK at the request of the US government. He was charged with multiple counts of computer crime, including unauthorized access to military networks, wire fraud, and conspiracy. The US authorities argued that McKinnon's actions had caused millions of dollars in damages and had jeopardized national security. However, McKinnon fought back against the extradition, arguing that he should not face trial in the US given his health condition, which included a diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome and other mental health issues. His legal defense argued that he was not a malicious hacker but rather someone with a deep curiosity about government secrecy and a desire to expose hidden truths. The case quickly became a cause célèbre in the UK, where McKinnon's supporters rallied around him, arguing that the US government's efforts to extradite him were disproportionate and unjust. McKinnon's defenders argued that he had been motivated by a sense of moral outrage over the government's secrecy, rather than by a desire for personal gain. They also pointed to the fact that McKinnon had not caused any lasting harm to the systems he had infiltrated, and that his motivations were more aligned with curiosity and whistleblowing than criminal intent. Despite these arguments, the legal battle for McKinnon's extradition continued for years, with numerous twists and turns. His supporters in the UK launched petitions, rallied against the extradition, and even enlisted the support of prominent public figures, including former members of parliament and celebrities. Despite this, the US government remained steadfast in its pursuit of McKinnon, emphasizing the severity of his actions and the potential national security risks his hacking had posed. In 2012, after years of legal proceedings, McKinnon was granted a reprieve from extradition by then Home Secretary Theresa May. The decision to block his extradition was based on McKinnon's health condition and the potential consequences of subjecting him to the stress of a trial in the US. While the decision was hailed as a victory by McKinnon's supporters, it was met with disappointment by US officials, who had been hoping to prosecute him for his actions. The case ultimately highlighted the complexities of international law and extradition, as well as the challenges of balancing national security concerns with human rights. Although McKinnon was spared extradition, he did face legal consequences. In the UK, his hacking activities were considered criminal offences under British law, and McKinnon could have faced prosecution for his crimes. However, due to his mental health issues, it was ultimately determined that he would not face charges in the UK, and he was allowed to move on with his life. Despite this, McKinnon's actions have had a lasting impact on the cybersecurity community and on public perceptions of hacking. His story has sparked ongoing debates about the ethics of hacking, the role of government secrecy, and the boundaries between curiosity-driven exploration and criminal activity. Gary McKinnon's case serves as both a cautionary tale and a symbol of the potential power and danger of hacking. While his actions were certainly illegal and carried significant risks, They were also driven by a desire to uncover what McKinnon believed to be hidden truths about government activities. His hacking spree led to significant disruptions within U.S. military and government systems, but it also exposed weaknesses in national security infrastructure that had been taken for granted. McKinnon's story has also contributed to the ongoing debate about the ethical implications of hacking. Was he a whistleblower trying to expose government secrets, or was he a criminal who jeopardized national security? The questions surrounding McKinnon's motivations and actions remain complex, and his case continues to resonate with those who seek greater transparency from governments and corporations alike. McKinnon's legacy as one of the most well-known hackers of the 21st century is cemented, not just because of the scope of his actions, but also because of the way they forced governments around the world to reassess their cybersecurity practices and policies. Kevin Mitnick, the hacker, who became the face of cybercrime, is arguably one of the most famous hackers of all time, known for his audacity, his incredible hacking skills, and the fact that his name became synonymous with the dangers of cybercrime. Born in 1963 in Van Nuys, California, Mitnick's early life was marked by an intense fascination with computers and telecommunications systems. As a teenager, he developed an interest in hacking and social engineering, skills that would ultimately propel him into the international spotlight. Mitnick's first brush with hacking began in the late 1970s and early 1980s. When he was still in high school, his early exploits involved what we would now consider low-level hacking, breaking into phone systems to make free long-distance calls. This was done through a method called fricking, which involved manipulating the analog telephone system to make calls without being charged. At the time, this was a common practice among early hackers, and it gave Mitnick his first taste of bypassing systems for personal gain. Mitnick's skills quickly grew, and his curiosity turned toward more complex targets. He began to experiment with breaking into computer networks, exploring ways to bypass security systems, and learning how to exploit vulnerabilities in corporate systems. By the mid-1980s, he had earned a reputation as one of the most talented and elusive hackers in the United States. Moving beyond the limitations of phone systems and targeting corporate networks, what truly set Kevin Mitnick apart from other hackers was his expertise in social engineering, the art of manipulating people into revealing sensitive information or giving unauthorized access to secure systems. Rather than relying purely on technical exploits, Mitnick was a master at convincing individuals to break security protocols through manipulation, deception, and charm. Mitnick's approach to hacking wasn't just about cracking codes or bypassing firewalls. He understood that people rather than computers or algorithms were often the weakest link in security. Using his skills in social engineering, he was able to trick employees into revealing login credentials, passcodes, and other sensitive information. He would often impersonate system administrators, offering assistance with computer problems in order to gain access to private networks or systems. Mitnick's expertise in social engineering allowed him to target high-profile companies, including major corporations like IBM, Motorola, and Nokia, and gain access to their most confidential systems. He would gather information, sometimes for years, before executing his hacks. He would exploit corporate systems to steal valuable proprietary data, software, and intellectual property, which he could either sell on the black market or use to fuel further attacks. Kevin Mitnick's hacking career took off in the 1980s and early 1990s, with a series of high-profile breaches that cemented his reputation as one of the most dangerous hackers in the world. His primary focus was on breaking into corporate systems, stealing valuable information, and creating chaos. One of the most notable of his hacks occurred in 1989, when he infiltrated the systems of Digital Equipment Corporation DEC, a major American company that manufactured computers and software. Mitnick's target at DEC was the company's source code for its operating systems. With access to this information, he could manipulate DEC's systems, steal data, or use the software for other purposes. This hack, among others, marked the beginning of a long series of cyber attacks that would stretch for years. His hacking spree soon became widespread, and he gained a reputation as a highly skilled and elusive hacker who could bypass even the most sophisticated security systems. Perhaps his most infamous attack took place in 1994 when Mitnick infiltrated the systems of major telecommunications companies and high-tech corporations. He broke into the computer networks of companies such as Motorola and Nokia, stealing proprietary software and other valuable data. Mitnick's success in these high-profile hacks left many companies scrambling to strengthen their security measures. But Mitnick was always one step ahead, constantly adapting his techniques and finding new ways to exploit vulnerabilities. The FBI's pursuit of Kevin Mitnick's cyberattacks had made him the target of an extensive manhunt, and by the early 1990s, the FBI was closing in on him. However, Mitnick was no ordinary criminal. He was an expert at covering his tracks, using stolen identities and false information to stay ahead of the authorities. He was able to hide in plain sight, moving across the country under different aliases and evading capture for several years. One of the reasons that Mitnick was so difficult to catch was his ability to maintain a low profile. He rarely used email or phone lines directly linked to him, instead relying on encrypted communications or passing messages through anonymous sources. He also used sophisticated methods to cover his digital footprints, making it difficult for the FBI to track him. For a time, Mitnick was essentially a ghost, evading authorities despite their best efforts to catch him. Despite his ability to hide, the FBI eventually began to close in on him after tracking his activities and uncovering clues about his whereabouts. In 1995, the FBI arrested Kevin Mitnick, marking the end of one of the most high-profile hacker manhunts in U.S. history. His arrest was the result of a massive coordinated effort by the FBI and other law enforcement agencies, and it brought an end to Mitnick's reign of cyber terror. After his arrest, Mitnick faced a lengthy trial for his cybercrimes, with charges ranging from wire fraud to unauthorized access to computer systems and theft of proprietary information. The prosecution argued that Mitnick's hacks had caused millions of dollars in damage, and that his actions had compromised the security of multiple high-profile companies. Mitnick's legal defense, however, took a different approach. They argued that he was not driven by malicious intent or financial gain, but rather by a personal fascination with hacking and the thrill of bypassing sophisticated security systems. Mitnick himself maintained that his actions were motivated by curiosity and a desire to understand how complex systems worked, rather than by a desire to cause harm. Nevertheless, Mitnick was found guilty on several charges and was sentenced to 5 years in prison, including 8 months in solitary confinement, which became one of the most controversial aspects of his case. The prosecution argued that the solitary confinement was necessary to prevent Mitnick from continuing his hacking activities while behind bars, but many critics saw it as a form of excessive punishment. Mitnick's imprisonment sparked debates about the ethics of punishment for hackers, with many questioning whether the legal system was overreacting to his actions. Kevin Mitnick's story didn't end with his conviction. After serving his prison sentence, Mitnick reinvented himself as a security consultant and author, using his knowledge of hacking to help organizations improve their cybersecurity. His personal transformation from hacker to legitimate cybersecurity expert became a symbol of redemption, proving that even those who had once been on the wrong side of the law could turn their lives around. Mitnick went on to write several books on cybersecurity and hacking, including The Art of Deception and The Art of Intrusion. In these books, he shared insights into the methods and techniques that hackers use to break into systems, as well as advice on how organizations can protect themselves from such attacks. Mitnick's expertise and first-hand experience with hacking gave him a unique perspective on cybersecurity, and he quickly became a sought-after consultant for businesses looking to secure their systems. In addition to his consulting work, Mitnick became a public speaker, sharing his experiences and insights with audiences around the world. He used his platform to educate people about the dangers of hacking and the importance of digital security. Through his work, he was able to shed light on the vulnerabilities in modern systems and advocate for better security practices, helping organizations to understand the risks and take proactive measures to protect themselves. Mitnick's post-prison career also allowed him to rebuild his reputation, moving from being one of the most wanted hackers in the world to being a respected figure in the cybersecurity industry. His transformation served as a reminder that people are capable of change, and that those who have made mistakes in the past can often redeem themselves and use their experiences to help others. Kevin Mitnick's legacy is one of complexity. While his actions as a hacker were illegal and disruptive, they also highlighted critical vulnerabilities in the digital age and underscored the need for stronger cybersecurity measures. His story also raised questions about the balance between personal privacy and national security. and about how society should treat individuals who engage in illegal hacking for reasons ranging from curiosity to political activism. As the world continues to become more reliant on technology, Mitnick's story remains a cautionary tale for both companies and individuals about the importance of cybersecurity. His life is a testament to the rapid pace of technological advancements and the challenges of keeping up with those who seek to exploit these advancements for personal gain. Mitnick's experience also serves as a reminder that hacking, while often romanticized in popular culture, can have real-world consequences that extend beyond the individual hacker. The damage caused by cybercrimes can be far-reaching, affecting companies, governments, and individuals alike. But Mitnick's redemption arc also offers hope, demonstrating that even those who have made major mistakes in the past can find ways to give back to society and contribute positively. Gary McKinnon, the hacker who breached NASA's systems, a British hacker, became infamous for breaking into 97 US military and NASA computers between 2001 and 2002. His actions would eventually lead to one of the most significant hacking cases in history, not only due to the high-profile nature of the institutions he targeted, but also because of the legal and political storm it caused, particularly between the United Kingdom and the United States. Born in 1966 in London, McKinnon was a self-taught computer enthusiast who spent most of his youth exploring the intricacies of computer systems and networks. McKinnon's journey into hacking began as an interest in personal computers during his teens, and he soon developed an understanding of how different systems functioned. Initially, McKinnon's actions were driven by curiosity and a desire to learn. In the years before his hacking spree, he had worked as a network administrator and had gained skills in navigating systems and identifying vulnerabilities in both military and civilian computer systems. McKinnon's decision to target NASA and US military computers was not a random one. His motivation was tied to his belief in the existence of a cover-up involving UFOs and extraterrestrial technology. He claimed that he was seeking evidence to reveal what he thought were government secrets about UFOs, alien technology, and free energy sources that had been hidden from the public. His hacking activities were not motivated by financial gain or a desire to cause harm, but by an intense personal belief that the truth was being suppressed. The NASA and US military hacks. McKinnon's series of cyber intrusions began in 2001, when he broke into several NASA systems. His target was not just any NASA data, but systems that held information related to US government and military activities. Over the course of a year, McKinnon would go on to infiltrate NASA's computers, downloading large amounts of sensitive data. His attacks were especially significant because of the nature of the information he was able to access. One of the most well-known aspects of McKinnon's intrusion into NASA's systems was the information he claimed to have uncovered about the US military space program. McKinnon alleged that he found evidence of UFO-related documents, as well as data about a secret space fleet that had been concealed from the public. Although NASA and the US government denied these claims, McKinnon's actions were highly disruptive, taking down the targeted systems for several weeks. In addition to NASA, McKinnon also broke into a number of military systems, including those of the US Army, Air Force, and Navy. According to McKinnon, his goal was not to steal any classified information for malicious purposes, but to expose the truth about UFOs and government cover-ups. Despite his insistence that his hacking was for the greater good, his actions were in clear violation of US law, and the consequences of his breaches were severe. For a long time, Gary McKinnon remained anonymous, conducting his hacks from his home in London using the name Solo. However, in 2002, US authorities were able to trace the source of the attacks back to McKinnon's computer. Once his identity was discovered, the US government began a massive effort to extradite him to face charges for his crimes. The US government accused McKinnon of causing damage to critical military and NASA systems, which they argued led to millions of dollars in repair costs. His actions were seen as a serious threat to national security, particularly given the sensitive nature of the military and government data he had accessed. McKinnon was charged with accessing over 97 US government systems and with causing significant disruption to critical infrastructure. As the case progressed, the legal battle became a complex issue of international law. The UK government initially refused to extradite McKinnon to the US, and he was able to avoid immediate punishment for several years. His case sparked debate about the reach of US law, enforcement over international hackers, and the implications for freedom of information on the Internet. In 2005, the US issued an official request for McKinnon's extradition, and the case became a high-profile legal matter in both the UK and the US. The British courts initially ruled in favor of extradition, but McKinnon's legal team continued to fight against it. One of the key arguments put forward by McKinnon's defense was his mental health. McKinnon was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, a condition on the autism spectrum, which his legal team argued could be exacerbated by the stress of extradition. And facing trial in the U.S. in 2012, after years of legal wrangling, the UK government's stance on extradition shifted, with then Home Secretary Theresa May announcing that McKinnon would not be extradited to the US. This decision was a victory for McKinnon, but the damage to his life had already been done. He had spent years fighting extradition while dealing with significant stress, anxiety, and the threat of a lengthy prison sentence in the US. Gary McKinnon's post-hack life and legacy never faced the charges he would have in the US. His hacking activities left a lasting mark on both cybersecurity and public perceptions of hackers. McKinnon's story raised important questions about the nature of hacking and the motivations behind it. His belief in uncovering the truth about UFOs and government secrecy shed light on how personal convictions can influence hacking activities, showing that hackers may have ideological or political reasons for their actions, rather than simply pursuing financial gain or infamy. Although McKinnon did not gain any financial reward or significant fame from his actions, his story brought attention to the vulnerabilities in US military and government systems, underscoring the need for stronger cybersecurity measures to protect sensitive data. His case also sparked a broader conversation about how hackers are treated by the legal system, particularly in cases where their actions may be driven by personal beliefs or a desire to expose what they perceive as a greater truth. In the years following his legal victory, McKinnon largely retreated from the public eye, though his case remains an example of how hacking can have profound consequences not only for the individuals involved but for national security and international diplomacy. He has since expressed regret over the disruption he caused, but has also maintained that his intentions were to expose hidden truths, which he believes continue to be suppressed by governments around the world. Gary McKinnon's story is both a cautionary tale and a compelling reflection of the intersection between technology, politics, and personal ideology. His breach of NASA and military systems opened the door to widespread discussions about the security of government systems and the ethics of hacking. While he remains a controversial figure, McKinnon's case highlighted the vulnerabilities of even the most highly protected systems, including those of the US military and NASA, showing that no system is completely impervious to skilled hackers. McKinnon's legacy is tied to his belief in transparency and his role in reshaping how the world views hackers. His case stands as a reminder that hacking is not always driven by malicious intent, but can be fueled by complex motivations, such as the desire for truth and social justice. Today, his name is often cited in discussions about hacking laws, government, transparency, and the ongoing battle between cybercriminals and those who aim to protect digital infrastructure. The world of hacking continues to evolve, with new individuals gaining notoriety for their skills, motivations, and impact on the digital world. Hackers like Gary McKinnon, Kevin Mitnick, and others have shown how cybercriminals can evade the law for years, disrupt entire industries, and even challenge political and ideological structures. The cases of these hackers provide a nuanced understanding of the evolving digital landscape, demonstrating that the line between criminal and hero can often be blurred, depending on perspective. As technology advances and cybersecurity grows more complex, the most wanted hackers of the future will likely be even more sophisticated and harder to track. The digital world is vast, and the opportunities for exploitation and manipulation of systems are endless. In this constantly shifting environment, the stories of the most wanted hackers serve as warnings about the power of technology, the importance of safeguarding data, and the sometimes unpredictable consequences of tampering with the virtual world.